let's get stuck into it because, like I said, I really do have a presentation that I want to give to you guys today. And this is going to be a bit of a story about how I found freedom from anxiety and how I created mind, body, and spirit alignment within, my self-development journey, right? And now I've helped hundreds of others do the same within 3 to 6 months. So, the unique thing about like working with myself is that I've actually gone through these issues before. So I can talk to you from a place of lived experience. I know exactly what's going on. I've made it my mission in life to essentially get a strong understanding of our internal landscape. So my whole thing for my like the best part of my life, right? I'm 31 now. So I've spent probably nearly 15 years, nearly half of my life, um, wanting to, with this desire to understand the internal landscape of humans. And what you got to understand is that you're not special, right? And I'm not special. And when I say that, I don't mean it in like some kind of condescending way. It's more like humans are very, you know, we show a lot of the same patterns over and over again. Humans are much more similar in their consciousness and in their awareness and in their emotional patterns and in their thinking than they that we might think. You might think that your problems are very unique and very special to you. But what I'm saying is that they're not that special, right? Every person goes through the same kind of things, right? At varying degrees. Obviously, some people have more extreme experiences and some people have less extreme experiences. But generally speaking, the emotional landscape or the inner landscape of humans is very, very similar. And once you start to understand the patterns and what to look out for, you can really start to unpack things and unravel things and process things and manage things. I did this first with myself in my own life, right? And I did that for 10 years before I started coaching. So you might not know this about me, but I did meditation for 10 years uh, before I started talking to anyone about helping anyone else. So 10 years, a decade of just my own self-inquiry and self-reflection of understanding myself, right? Before I even sought any other help from anyone else. I didn't even get my first coach until probably a decade after I started meditating, right? And I didn't help anyone else. I didn't even try to help anyone else for at least a decade. You know, and I only started when I really had the opportunity to start, right? After a decade, there was this opportunity during COVID to do my meditation teacher training. It just popped into my life, right? Like I didn't ever plan on doing that. I literally had no idea that that was what I would want to do with my life. I did spend a lot of time thinking about what my purpose was and what am I going to do with my life, but I never knew. I always felt like I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. And then one day, I just got this opportunity to do my meditation teacher training and I took it. And since that day, I've been on this journey of now teaching meditation and then coaching people with their mindset. And that's been the last 5 years. And ever since that decision and that day to become a meditation teacher, everything has flowed on so naturally and so easily and so effortlessly. It's like this is 100% the path that I'm supposed to be on. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind about that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of a bit of background, right? And since then, I've helped, hundreds of people overcome their stress, their anxiety, their overwhelm. Usually it happens within 3 to 6 months. Sometimes it can happen quicker than that, right? Sometimes it can happen in like the first month or 2 months even. Whereas sometimes it takes 8 months, even 12 months. I've worked with people. What I generally find is the longer that I work with someone, the bigger the transformation is because it's obviously a longer period of time. So the more that I get to witness a big transformation for that person. Like I've had clients I've worked with for a couple of years and they went from like married in one relationship, drinking and doing drugs and avoiding all of their emotional issues when they started working with me, and then, work with me for 2 years and they leave their marriage, they leave their job, they leave the city that they live in, they move to a totally different city, right? They move to a totally different line of work and they meet a whole new partner, develop a whole new relationship. I've actually experienced that with one of my clients, 2 years, total life transformation. So yeah, just giving you guys some background and some context into like, like my story and kind of like where I've been with it. I'll dive into this a little bit more as we go. But today what I really wanted to do is just share with you how I found freedom from anxiety and created this mind, body, spirit alignment, because it's something that I talk about a lot. And it's something that I think is worth sharing. It's a story I believe is worth sharing. So just for, bit of social proof, if you go, one of the things I'm really big on is always just getting Google reviews. Like I don't ask people to film me testimonials or anything like that, because when I do work with people on this stuff, generally speaking, people like to keep it pretty private. Like, people don't want to speak about their mental health issues, and I totally respect that. So I don't ask people to film videos or anything. I just ask them to give me a Google review. And you can go to you can Google Mind Launch and you can read all of these reviews, but I've just put a few here. So if you wanted to have a quick read of these, you could. If you're watching the replay, you can always just pause the video and read through these, or you can just go and Google Mind Launch and you can read them. And there's more here, and there's more here. People that I work with are usually like business owners or business professionals, right? So they are driven people who are ambitious, people who are driven. And usually, in most cases, they actually have some success in their professional life. So they're doing, well in their professional life, but their personal life is a bit of a shambles, right? So the emotional aspect, the mental aspect, usually the relationships, those things are usually going to be an issue, but it all stems from like lack of self-worth, self-doubt, anxiety, stress, and then all of those kind of internal issues start affecting their external life and their personal life specifically. So yeah, those are just the kind of people that I work with. A few more here. James, electrical engineer. Tim, business owner. Molly, she's a breathwork practitioner actually. I worked with her before she started doing breathwork. She went from doing some job that she didn't really like, I think she was in a corporate government job or something, to then becoming a breathwork practitioner. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, there's stories like that. I try to avoid working with certain people, people who want the traditional approach, right? So not that there's anything wrong with that. Like it's just not my jam. That's just not what I do. If people want to go down the traditional approach, I support them in doing that. Go, if that's what you feel called to do, go and do that. That's just not my route, right? And that's never has been my route. And yeah, it's not that I don't think that those things are helpful. Like I absolutely think if you want to go down that route, you want to go to the doctors, medications, therapists, counselors, you can go down that route, and I would support people to go down that route. But that's just not my route, right? So another thing is like I don't really want to work with people who just want to get the quick fix or the band-aid, who want to like skirt around the edges of the real issues, who are always looking for like reassurance, because a lot of people do that. Same thing, right? If that's where you're at, and that's fine. Like that's what if that's what you need to feel safe, then go and do that. Absolutely. But like I said, it's just not my jam. That's just not what I do. I like to go a bit deeper into the real issues, and take responsibility for our lives, because that's what I did. That's what worked for me. That's what I've seen work with so many others. So that's why I do it like that. People who do like working with me generally have an open mind, and they want to build their self-confidence. So they want to take that responsibility for their self. They want to open their mind up to new ways of thinking, and they want to work on building their self-confidence. They want to take control of their life by practicing discipline, routine, and accountability. And they're ready to implement new habits and confront the actual issues. These are the people who do well with the program and people that I actually like working with. So yeah, who am I? Right? The age-old question. Like I said just at the start of this video, right, I wanted to dive into this a little bit because it helps to build that rapport, which is actually really needed to feel safe with someone, right? If you don't know someone, it's hard to feel safe with them, and it's hard to feel like you trust them, right? So, like I said, my mental health journey started back in 2011 when I was 17. I was anxious, I was overthinking, I had these mental health struggles. At the same time, I knew I had more potential internally, but I didn't really feel like I knew who I was, and I didn't want to go on medication. I just knew that. At that point, I felt like I was close to needing to do that. Like it was a path that I was considering, but I really didn't want to go down that path. And I remember it was actually, to be honest with you, at the time I was smoking a lot of weed, And I was 17, right? A 17-year-old young guy, right, with some mental health issues, smoking a lot of weed. Um, and I was looking at different conspiracy like theory articles or blog articles. Like I don't read blog posts anymore. I don't know if anyone does, but back then I was reading blog posts and they were usually like spirituality, consciousness, and like conspiracy stuff, right? And it was one blog post I read, which was about meditation. And basically, I didn't really know anything about meditation, but in this blog post, it said if you do meditation, like, within a few years, you'll be like a superhuman. And I was 17 and I was feeling like shit. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to meditate for a few years and I'm going to hopefully become a superhuman, right? And to be fair, I actually think that happened, right? It worked for me. Meditation really helped me get control of my mind and get control of my inner world and my perspective, right? But there was still some struggles that I had, right? So fast forward to 2018. So at this point, I was probably 25 years old, and I was still struggling with drinking. I've got alcohol in my like addiction in my family. My dad's an alcoholic. And yeah, that was always been an issue, or it was always an issue for me in my early 20s, late teens. And I struggled with it a lot actually. And it was always a problem with me. I don't really like identifying with the like addictions and stuff like that. But it was definitely an addictive tendency that I had. It was like I was doing it regularly and I was binging and I couldn't stop. And it really fucked me up mentally because I would hate myself afterwards. And one time I had got blackout drunk and I cheated on my girlfriend, who I had been with for 4 years. Not that being drunk condones that, but that's just what happened. And then after that, obviously, we had a relationship breakdown. That relationship ended, which was unfortunate because, it was a great relationship. She was a great girl. I was just a bit of a mess. And after that, that's when I kind of hit rock bottom and started to feel like hopeless. So this was probably the first time where I ever felt depression. Like depression, if you've ever felt depression, like real depression, it's to the point where you can't, it's hard to even leave the house. It's hard to even leave your room. That was what I experienced anyway. I just had no, it was like I had no willpower to do anything. Even the smallest little thing like going to the shops was like really hard for me, but I had to force myself to do it because I had to force myself to get out of the house because yeah, I was just in this kind of rock bottom, hopeless, depressed state and everything was hard. That was also the turning point. You hear this a lot, but it's usually the case where people have this rock bottom moment, they have this turnaround. That's what happened for me. I actually started to sobriety and I went sober for a year. So 2018, 2019, I was totally well, after this event in 2018. So for the majority of 2019, I was totally sober. I just went cold turkey. I just made a decision to myself one day, I'm not drinking for 12 months. And I actually used social media as accountability. So I posted every month, I'm sober for 1 month, I'm sober for 2 months, I'm sober for 3 months, I'm sober for 4 months. And that actually worked for me, that accountability. And that was when my life turned around. All right. So then fast forward another couple of years. At this point, I've been sober for like a few years. Well, I went back to drinking, but I just don't drink anywhere like I used to drink. Right now, I kind of cap myself at like 2 or 3 beers. I don't really drink more than that ever. So yeah, I was pretty clean. I was pretty clear. I was pretty sober. Fast forward a few years, and COVID happened. Right, big problem with stress and anxiety in the world. This is when I got my opportunity to do the meditation teacher training, right? I was living in Sydney before this, and then I came up to the Sunshine Coast because I wanted to get out of Sydney because it was COVID and I didn't want to be in the city when COVID was happening. So I came back to the sunny coast and yeah, got the opportunity to become a meditation teacher. And it was 2021 when I ran my first meditation class. It was January 2021. That's when I ran my first ever meditation class as a teacher. After 10 years of practicing, right? So I started practicing in 2011, taught my first class in 2021. So I started running classes, workshops, and coaching. And since then, that's just what I've been doing, right? The following year, I got married, I became a father. I also felt like a lot of pressure to grow my business and provide for my family because my wife's a stay-at-home mum. So I had a lot of pressure, like managing the business and managing the marriage and stuff like that, because we had a pretty big year, 2022. We met in January. She was pregnant by I think, or May or something like that. It was maybe even earlier, probably March, because the baby, then we got married in November, and then Coco came in December. So it all happened in 1 year. That was a hectic year of growth. Right. 2023 was also pretty hectic just because we were still stabilizing ourselves in the new family unit and the new business and being a sole income provider and all those kinds of things. It took a little bit, but now we're in 2024. We're coming towards the end of 2024 now. And I can honestly say, confidently, hand on my heart, we have a happy family. Like, even behind the scenes, we are happy. Like, we are communicating well. Things are going good for us. And I'm really happy about that. Successful clients, like I have a lot of Google reviews from people who are actually successful with this work, which for me is very important because I don't do it just to, just to run a business or to make money. I do it because my purpose in life is to help people to live with emotional and mental well-being. So people are having success with the program, the business is going well, and I feel as clear as I ever have in my whole entire life right now. So yeah, that's kind of like an overarching view of myself. But like I said at the start of this call, one of the things that I have prioritized very highly in over the last 15 years is understanding the internal world, right? And understanding what is anxiety, right? And that's been really, really important to me. And what I've come to is an understanding that anxiety is a mental, physical, and emotional experience that you can have that is driven by fear, right? So anxiety can show up in your life mentally and emotionally through overthinking, negative thoughts, constant doubts, fears, and worries. It can also create physical symptoms like pain in the body, pain behind the eyes, shortness of breath, shaky hands, an elevated heart rate, and also other, weird little symptoms that can happen with your anxiety. So that shows up mentally and emotionally. It also shows up physically, and it can make you feel in a state of panic, as if the world is caving in on you, and that can lead to irrational behaviors and undesirable outcomes. So your inner world of anxiety can create this, bad experiences in your external world through irrational behavior because it's kind of taking you over and changing your perspective of life, and that can lead to things that you don't really want to be doing. Now, obviously, there's more to it, right? Your nervous system has a part to play. Your past trauma has a part to play. Inner child work can be really powerful for anxiety, depending on the case. One thing I've learned with anxiety is after working with hundreds of people, it's different for everyone. When I say it's different for everyone, what I mean is that there's like different ways that it can show up. But even though it is different for everyone, there are still the same patterns with everyone. So let me give you an example for this quickly. I've worked with people like guys who I just teach them meditation and discipline and routine and habits, and they solve their anxiety. They fix it 100%, right? So if that, I would consider that's a pretty easy fix, right? I tell them, do your breath work, do your meditation, do your journaling, and just be consistent and disciplined with that, and their anxiety is fixed, right? Some other people that I've worked with, I tell them to do that, and it's not enough, right? There's still something there that's like blocking them. And so then we usually will dive deeper into the inner child healing work, because sometimes what can happen in our childhood years is we have experiences that create a sense of unsafety in the body. So we have these fearful, scared, afraid experiences. And then if we aren't feeling safe, or if we didn't get a feeling of safety within those experiences, then it's essentially like, as a child, our nervous system has shot up into the fight or flight, and we've never learned how to bring ourselves back down properly. So then throughout the rest of our life, we're having these constant experiences where we're going up into the anxiety and we're just not coming back down. We're going up and we're coming back down. So you'll see this with people who have the recurring loop of anxiety over and over and over and over and over and over again, that they have more deeper work to do around inner child healing, emotional healing, trauma healing, right? Which is essentially just allowing yourself to go back and understand what's going on for you in your unconscious mind, and also what's suppressed for you. So when we do that deeper work, that will usually clear the anxiety out, right? That's when, fully grown men break down into tears and finally allow themselves to feel their emotions and stuff like that. Same thing for women, same things apply, right? Sometimes it's just about getting some discipline in check. Sometimes there's deeper work to be done, but it's always one of those two approaches, right? So I know confidently we can solve anxiety either just with getting your like habits and discipline and routine and everything in check, and teaching you breath work and teaching you how to meditate properly, because that's a problem for people. They do the meditation, but they're not actually doing it properly, or they're not getting it. And they quit or they give up, and so they don't actually get it. So that's why it can be helpful working with myself, because I'll teach you how to meditate properly and help you become consistent in that and disciplined in that. And once you get that practice, and once you understand what's going on internally through that practice, that can be a pathway that solves all of the issues by itself. Or if that doesn't work, or if it kind of like you make some progress and you feel good, but then you get like a regression, or you get tricked back into the same pattern over and over again, then we can look at the deeper work around emotional healing. So that's why if you are in my program, I know there's a few people on this call who are already in my program. The start of it is just building your habits and your foundations, discipline and stuff like that, because we need to get that sorted first. And then that needs to be like the floor, right? The baseline. And then once we kind of get that ball rolling, we can see a few weeks in or a few months in how you're going, and then see if you're starting to get triggered back into these emotional patterns. And if you are, then we can do some deeper healing work around that. That's why the healing work is later in the program, because people always want to rush into the healing work, but sometimes you don't need to, right? And if you don't need to, then you don't need to. But that's why it's later into the course, because we do the basic, foundational discipline, routine, habits, meditation, breath work, getting connected with your own self-awareness, learning to regulate your nervous system, which is what that is, and reprogram your subconscious mind. Once you learn the methods that I teach for that, then you can do that, and that might solve the issue. If it doesn't, then we go into the emotional healing work, right? Healing past traumas and stuff like that. So that's like a big overarching understanding of like what I've learned about anxiety. Like I said, bringing it back, it all starts from feelings of unsafety, feelings of fear, and that shows up in a variety of different ways. So that's why we actually overcome it by taking a different approach as opposed to the normal approach, right? I personally haven't seen too many people actually overcome anxiety by taking medication, or going to the doctors. Sometimes people do with like therapy and psychologists, but it just depends on who you're working with. That's really important. That's why I was sharing some of my story before, because you need that rapport, right? Sometimes, I'm not saying all psychologists and therapists are bad. Some of them are really, really good. And in the same way, I'm sure there's a lot of shit coaches, but there's some that are good, right? And in the same way as you could probably go to and apply that same logic to any career, right? There's probably some shit carpenters, but there's also probably some really good carpenters. There's probably some shit personal trainers, but there's also probably some really, really good personal trainers. There's probably some dodgy bankers, but there's also probably some really, really good bankers. So it's not about isolating these like you know, these people into these boxes. It's just understanding that you're going to be dealing with different people. Some people will be good at their job. Some people won't be good at their job. Some people will use effective processes. Some people won't, right? Some people will try to cut corners. Some people won't. And so that's why I'm really big on making sure that we're not just looking for the quick fix. We're not trying to avoid the problem. We don't always seek reassurance and external validation. We don't just rely on medication, which might be helpful with temporary relief, but it's only ever going to be a band-aid solution. And we don't just spend years talking about the same problem without trying different things first. I don't even go into the healing work until I've tried a few different things first, because I don't think we need to put too much emphasis on the past if we don't need to. So yeah, we actually want to be taking responsibility for our thoughts and our emotions. We want to learn to control ourselves. We want to do the inner work. We want to learn to trust ourselves and believe in ourselves. And we do that by practicing discipline and accountability, and by implementing new habits, routines, and lifestyle changes. And finally, we make a real commitment to our healing, growth, and inner peace. Another thing which is I think it's not very helpful about the whole doctor therapist route is sometimes you can go for one session, and then you don't go back. There's no commitment, right? There's no like, it's like I'll go to one session, or maybe people basically have these freak out moments, and they feel like, fuck, I need to go talk to my psychologist. Um, and then they go do one session, and then they don't do anything else. Like, that's it. Okay, now I feel a bit better, and let's go back onto my life. Nothing's changed, right? There's no commitment. This is why I, create a program that's like a 6-week program, a 6-month program, right? For it's a longer time period, because that's what is needed, I believe, to actually create change. And we have to commit to that, right? That's a commitment. Not just a money commitment, but you have to actually commit your time to that. But if you want to heal properly from anxiety, then this is what you need to do. I really believe this is the way. So let's dive a little bit deeper. I know it's already 7:30, but I'm just going to keep running with this because I'm on a roll. I understand if you have to leave, that's fine. But I'm going to now dive into a deeper understanding of the frameworks that I use and why it's so effective. So this is going to go a few levels deeper than just all that surface level stuff we were just talking about. But this is essentially my model of understanding the mind and how it works, right? But not just the mind. This is how we create the mind, body, spirit alignment, right? So what you've got to understand is that before your mind, you have consciousness and awareness. So stick with me here. I'm going to slow it down a little bit because this is some deeper stuff. You've got a mind, and you've also got a body, and you've also got a spirit, right? Your spirit, in my opinion, is coming first. And it's not just an opinion, like I really believe this. Like this is true for me. This is a real belief for me. Spirit comes first. And what that means is we actually have our consciousness first. Our awareness is the first and primary thing that we have. We couldn't have our mind if we didn't have our awareness. Our awareness is a very spiritual thing, right? How do we have it? No one knows. It's a mystery, right? How are we here? All these crazy, questions we can start to ask ourselves. Consciousness, your consciousness and your awareness is a very spiritual thing. And it's a part of everyone, right? Everyone has this part of themselves. There's no one, it's not like, oh, you have the spirit and this other person doesn't. Every single human has a spiritual aspect of themselves, and it is their consciousness or it's their awareness. Now, to put this a little bit more logically or a little bit more scientifically, you might want to call it your senses or your perception. So you can see, you are aware that you can see, right? You can see the world around you. If you look around, okay, cool, I'm seeing things. I'm aware of seeing things, right? Or I'm hearing with my ears what Josh is saying right now. That you're sensing that, the noise, the sound, you're sensing it, right? You're perceiving it. Touch, right? Maybe you're touching something. You can feel it, right? You're sensing that. You're perceiving it through your sense of touch. So our consciousness and our awareness, we're just up here right now, right? Our consciousness and our awareness, our senses and our perception, that is how we receive information from our environment. All of the information that you receive from your environment is coming through your sensory perception or your awareness or your consciousness. Different words for the same kind of thing. You have all of your experiences through the lens of your awareness or your consciousness. And that is the primary thing that happens, the first thing. And it's a very spiritual thing to be alive and to be experiencing things, to be conscious of things. Very spiritual. Now, the second thing that happens, secondary, is we create thoughts and beliefs. We create stories and we create meaning. That is a mental thing that happens in the mind. That is secondary to spirit. So we go around experiencing things through our senses and through our awareness. And then what we do is we start creating thoughts and beliefs and stories and meanings about what's happening. And we need to do that. It's not that it's bad, but it's just understanding that's actually the second thing that happens. It's not a bad thing. It's just a second thing. And we actually need to do that because we need to function in the world, right? We need to make sense of the world. We need to give it some kind of meaning. In different parts of the world, we will have different stories, different narratives, different meanings about different things, right? It's very much based off our environment. And so at this level, the level of the mind, this is where we start to create our memories, right? So for example, if you think back to your childhood, you have thoughts and beliefs about what happened, right? You've probably got memories, and those memories are kind of like tinged with a certain color of your thoughts and feelings about what happened, right? You can either be conscious of those things, or you can develop unconscious thoughts and beliefs, unconscious stories. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy, right? Usually those can be unconscious for the most part. Another thing that happens at the level of the mind is we confirm or disconfirm our reality. I believe that. I don't believe that. So we're confirming or disconfirming our experience of reality based off the thoughts and stories and beliefs that we're telling ourselves. All of that is happening at the mental level, the level of the mind. Cool. Just drop a 111 if that's making sense so far in the chat box. What happens next? Right. So this is top down, right? If you want to get a bit spiritual here, you can imagine that like, you're a light being, right? Or there's a chakra system or something like that, right? So above your head, you've got this spiritual like light, right? And it comes down into your head and then it lands in your mind, right? And so then now you're in the mind and you're in your head, right? And what happens next? We come down into the body. So the thoughts, the beliefs, the stories, and the meanings that we have will actually create different physiology within our body. Our thoughts will affect our chemicals and hormones in the body, right? Not to say that it's the only thing that affects them, but the thoughts do play a part in, our nervous system regulation and our general physiology. And this happens through what's called epigenetics. So this is a fairly new science about epigenetics. Essentially, epi means above, and obviously genetics is the gene. So it's talking about what's being influenced above the gene, right? So the genome is influenced by our mental environment. The thoughts and stories that we tell ourselves will affect the 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 genes, the chemicals, the hormones in the body. So an example of this that I give sometimes is like this. It's so funny on Instagram, some of the comments that I get about this because people just take it so literally. But imagine you're sitting in a room with Robert Irwin, right? The Steve Irwin's son. And he's at Australia Zoo every day. My wife was actually just there the other day, and they're playing with these big ass crocodiles and just feeding them meat and stuff like that. And they're super chilled, right? Robert Irwin's just there feeding this like massive crocodile a bit of meat. And he's super chill about it, super relaxed. So I said, imagine that you were chucked into a room with Robert Irwin and then someone else would throw a crocodile in. But don't even do that. Just imagine that you are probably up there on stage with Robert Irwin. Or imagine you are switching place with him. There's this massive crocodile, right? And it's coming to get some meat off you, right? Now, Robert Irwin, he just stands there and he just gives the meat to the crocodile because he has memories of him doing that in the past and beliefs that he's capable of that. And he has story and meaning in relationship to the crocodile. His story is like probably this crocodile is like my friend, right? Or something like that. The crocodile is not going to hurt me. The crocodile doesn't mean danger for me, right? That's what he's thinking. And his memories confirm that. His mind confirms that for him because he's had so many experiences of that. So you see the spirit and the mind coming first here, and that allows him to feel so calm and relaxed as he's feeding the crocodile. Now, if you switch it out and you're there, there's no Robert Irwin around, you're just there by yourself feeding that crocodile. I don't know about you, but I would be shitting myself. I would at least be like some level of nervousness and scared, probably a bit more adrenaline pumping through my body, a bit more cortisol pumping through my body, because in my head, I don't have any memories of me ever feeding a crocodile, right? And I have no experience of that. My story is that this crocodile could death roll me and chomp me up in very easily, right? I don't know that this crocodile is not going to do that. I have no idea who this crocodile is, right? I've never met this crocodile before in my life. So I'm freaking out. I've got adrenaline. I've got stress and cortisol in my body. So yeah, I could go and argue with the people on Instagram because they usually say things like, yeah, well, he's had so many experiences of that before and he's been handling them his whole life, which actually confirms what I'm talking about here. He has memories and experiences that allow him to feel that way. So your thoughts and your beliefs and the stories and the meaning that you have, the experiences that you have, all play a part in your chemicals, your hormones, your physiology, your nervous system through epigenetics, right? So it's starting, your thoughts are now starting to affect your body. And then that creates different emotions and feelings. Now I'm feeling scared of the crocodile. It's gonna eat me, right? And now I'm feeling guilty. I didn't tell my wife I love her as much, right? As I should have, or something like that, right? So then we start to feel these emotions. And at that point, we can either suppress the emotions or express, right? So we're either gonna suppress them and maybe I'll freeze and just let the crocodile eat me, or maybe I'll express and I'll scream and run away. Or I could just accept it, right? I can accept the emotions. I can accept what I'm feeling. That's actually going to allow me to respond in a better way. And then from there, emotions and our feelings create actions and behaviors. So that's going to equal the results and outcomes. Let's say I suppress, I just stand still and I freeze and I look very scared and the crocodile is going to try and eat me, or I run away and, I get away from the crocodile, but I'm freaking out. I realize that Robert Irwin's just up there in the stands just telling me, hey, it's all right. It's all good. Just go for it. Right. You get the point. But it's also a feedback loop, right? So there's arguments about, okay, well, are we sure that thoughts come first? Don't emotions come first? Are we sure the senses, how does it all work? It works as a feedback loop, right? So it all feeds back into itself. So you start having different actions and behaviors, which starts feeding new experiences, which starts creating new thoughts, which starts creating new emotions. And then it's like this feedback loop where it's just constantly feeding back into itself. And this is all happening very fast, right? Between the experience that you're having and the action that you take, sometimes it can be 1 second, right? It can be very, very fast. And so what we really want to do is we want to work on, well, what I do work on with people is changing this whole setup, right? By working on this, changing their consciousness or their awareness, changing their perspective, and also this thoughts, beliefs, stories, and meanings, right? Because when we change our consciousness and our perspective, we shift our consciousness into a different perspective or different perception, that has a trickle down effect to everything else. We work on then changing the thoughts and the beliefs and the stories and the meanings. So this is when we go into those memories, if we are doing the healing work and we start to reprogram that subconscious mind or the unconscious mind, right? And when we work on that, it changes this. We regulate the nervous system, right? We learn how to deal with our emotions and we start to take new actions and behaviors. So just drop a 222 if that's all very clear and you understand how that works. This is something that you want to go over probably a few times. I've got it in my program at the very start of the Anxiety to Alignment program. I call this the big picture. This is something that I encourage people to get familiar with. You might be looking at this going, holy shit, that's a lot of information. It is, right? I don't expect you to get it straight away. It is a lot of information. But when you can, spend some more time reading it and getting familiar with it and understanding it, it helps you to understand yourself. Like I said, I have been exploring this and passionate about this for the last 15 years, so I understand it quite well. But even still, there's some things that I don't understand. Like sometimes I wonder, with the senses and the perception, right, our experience, can that affect, our physiology even before the thought kicks in? But I think it probably doesn't because of this. It's always unconscious. There's always this underlying kind of thing. So in my perspective, this is the most true representation of our kind of psychology and physiology that I know of so far. And I'd love for someone to try and prove me wrong on it because then I could learn something. But that's generally how I see it, right? So yeah, here's another page just full of testimonials of people who have used this method and have actually had amazing results. So that's that. Yeah, guys, are there any quick questions or anything like that before we move on? No, everyone's pretty happy. If there are, you can pop them into the chat box. We're nearly done right now. Today's a bit of a longer session, but I'm hoping that you guys are getting something out of this. We're going to talk about how do we actually change this now, right? If you're in my program, we have something called the Mind Launch Method. It's the first thing that I teach people, right? It involves a very unique style of meditation. It's not just like, listening to the Calm app, although the Calm app can be helpful, but I try to actually teach people meditation, teach people how to meditate in silence, and teach people the nuances of meditation, as opposed to just try to sit down. It doesn't work. We also use a specific journaling practice that helps you to confirm new beliefs, which is important. So it's not just like affirmations of saying, I am this, I am that. It's actually developing a process where we dive deeper into how do we confirm a new perspective, because that's what we're doing, right? And like I said, it's a feedback loop. So this up here, oh, where are we? We work on this and this. There's micro feedback loops in this. So if we just continue to have a little micro feedback loop here, we confirm new beliefs, we change our perspective. We confirm new beliefs, we have new information and new experiences happening just here, right? And so that's really, really important. So that's the mind launch method that we dive into. And if you're one of my clients already, you'll be hopefully doing that every other day, hopefully even every day if you're really onto it. That's what we want. That's best practice, right? Every single day. Now, when you implement this for a long time, what's going to happen is you're going to shift from low self-worth to high self-worth. Let me just show you how this works. People with low self-worth, people who feel stuck, or they're in a pattern of revolving or devolving, so getting worse, right? They go to take a commitment or an action, and then they hit a roadblock. And then when they hit the roadblock, they have excuses, justification, blaming, complaining. They don't take responsibility, and they create reasons why they can't do it. And then they end up back where they started. So they're stuck. This is actually a low self-worth, right? What we want to do is we want to develop high self-worth. This is when you can change, when you can evolve. And this means you make a commitment, you take action, you're going to hit roadblocks. Everyone's going to hit roadblocks. But the difference is people with high self-worth develop the courage to jump over the roadblock, to figure out a way to overcome their challenges. People with low self-worth don't do that. People with low self-worth just say, fuck this, I can't do it, right? Or they make up a million reasons why they can't do it. They justify why they can't do it. And this is why I said I don't like working with people like that because it's very hard to create change. This is why I don't like the quick fixes. I don't like looking for reassurance, external validation, or other shit like that, because it just doesn't really work. At least I have never seen that work, right? So yeah, what does work is when people develop the courage to jump over their challenges and to jump over their barriers. And when people do that, when I see people do that, they get growth, they get achievement. I've personally experienced that growth and achievement, right? So that is essentially how we are going to develop higher self-worth. So if you're someone who's, wanting to overcome your anxiety and create mind, body, spirit alignment within the next 3 to 6 months, then DM me the word details on Instagram and I'll send you the details, right? I'm currently opening up the enrollments for the Anxiety to Alignment program. And if you want the details for that program, which basically tells you exactly who it's for, exactly what it helps with, all of the details for the program, the process that we use, the price of the program, everything like that, how to get started. It's all in this document. So just DM me the word details. I'll send you over that document. We don't need to do a call or anything. If you read through the document and then you feel like, yeah, this is something that could be helpful for me, then we can jump on a call, make sure that we're a good fit, that we vibe together, because that really is important. And then once we do that, we can, either choose to get started or not. So if you do want to jump on board, DM me the word details on Instagram and I'll send you over the details. And yeah, I'm really confident with this work. I know that it's helpful. I know that it's created change for myself, for hundreds of others. And I'm sure that if you commit yourself to it, it can create change for you as well. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you.